breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
Buffalo Bills kicker just came forward with shocking message about white people. The Buffalo Bills sure picked up a rare gem in their new kicker. They signed an overpaid and entitled white privileged man boy named Steven Hauschka, who now speaks out against white people from the comfort of his $1 million luxury career as a guy who kicks a football. If we thought Michael Bennett's black power fist wasn't bad enough for the NFL and its drooping ratings, then here we go again with another anti-white people message. Kicker Hauschka said, "I think a lot of white people don't understand it and are afraid to be involved," Hauschka told the Buffalo News. "And I think it's important for white people to see there is inequality everywhere in the country right now, and in the world." Hauschka apparently was moved to get more involved after receiving a player memo seeking to bring more awareness to the issue of racial inequality. Hauschka recently signed a 3-year contract worth $8,850,000 with the Buffalo Bills, and he wants to talk about inequality. "I kicked a few footballs in a men's league flag football game once. I paid them to let me do it. How's that for inequality?" He's armchair quarterbacking civil rights the same way Bernie Sanders talks about nonsense from the comfort of one of his 3 homes. This is pure nonsense, and he should have kept his mouth zipped on the topic and enjoyed his life. Now he's part of the reason the NFL ranks have tanked. He mentions racial inequality, but does he know anything about inequality at all? He is literally a poster boy for white privilege. Does he realize we are all born as humans and we have the chance to go to school, get an education, and make something of ourselves? He did. He went to North Carolina State and got himself into the NFL as an undrafted free agent. He made it happen, the same way anyone can make anything happen if they believe in themselves and work hard. When you look at urban education and see a mass amount of urban students dropping out because being educated is not cool in the hood, then you want to talk about racial inequality, then that's nonsense. People who won't invest in themselves at school, then want to blame race for their lack of opportunity or jobs, are the same people who should have stayed in school and followed up high school with trade school or college. There is no such thing as racial inequality. What is there that people can't do based on their race? Even if people live in the worst city with the worst school district in the country, they can still go to class, learn, and make a living. Some people just choose not to. Being educated in the hood isn't cool. It's frowned upon. There's people who have kids at a young age, then their kids have kids at a young age, and the grand result is a 35-year-old grandmother and 2 missing fathers and a bunch of bad kids with no guidance. That's not racial inequality, that's irresponsibility. And that exact concept is present in bad neighborhoods of all colors. That's not a black thing. That's not a white thing. That's an irresponsible people thing. If you think there's only ghettos filled with black folks, then you're quite mistaken. There's plenty of poor white people not staying in school and not making something of themselves. I look around and see people of every color, shape, and size working in just about every job you can imagine. Can someone find me a place where there's actually a racial inequality? I go to the hospital and see men, women, blacks, whites, a few extra Asians or Indians, and there's both men and women. I can go to the supermarket and see both genders and numerous races. The trash truck drives by once per week and sometimes it's black folks, sometimes whites, rarely Asians though. We had a black president for 8 years. Most professional football and basketball players are African American. I just walked by a black cop today who looked like he could dig up the Undertaker's career body, kill him again, then resurrect Owen Hart in real life. This guy was jacked, and if he ever arrested me, I would be all yes sir, no sir, drop my pants any day sir, not really the last part. Where is the racial inequality? How about the Congressional Black Caucus? I can't join that because I'm not black. That's some racial inequality for you. Racial inequality only exists to people who refuse to work hard and make their life into something wonderful. If someone is turned down for a job or placement in a school based on race, then there's a major lawsuit that puts the business and livelihood of a company in jeopardy. Barely anyone wants to risk that or get involved. Race relations have been fine since 9/11. People were getting along. People didn't care that we had a black president for 8 years, they cared more that he was a Democrat. And then when Trump won, it was like everyone is racist. Well, where did that come from? How come we weren't all racist when Obama was president? How come I could then, and now, have a fun time hanging out and working with my friends who are mixed races and literally nothing has changed? Correction. There's one thing that changed. The narrative on racial issue has changed greatly, and that all stems from the leftist mainstream media. The general rule of thumb for Democrats is that if you're losing an argument, or the 2016 election, then call the opponent a racist and people will lose their mind. It's true. It's happening now. The left has lost their mind and they're now calling everyone racist. They've even got white people suggesting that other white people are racist. Does anyone else notice this insane amount of lunacy? Liberalism seriously is a mental disorder. Hauschka later said, "I don't have all the answers, I don't even pretend to," Hauschka admitted. "But I am open to talking about it and I am open to learning about it with the hopes that one day, either our generation or future generations, can improve racial inequality and how people are treated around the world." Everyone is open to talking about it, but there's a problem we should all agree on: it's fake news coming from the liberal mainstream media. Let's talk about that, yeah? I think Steven Hauschka should have stayed on the Seattle Seahawks where he could have blasted his generic, fake news. Can't even point out one example for us, nonsense about white people with racist acting Michael Bennett. Let's talk about racial inequality while guys like Michael Bennett throws up a black power fist in the middle of a game, but no one is allowed to call that racist. If Tom Brady raised a Hitler salute after a touchdown pass, people would lose their mind. And no, Tom Brady is not a Nazi just because he's white. That was just an example of a well-known player. Brady does not do that, and this is not to suggest that he ever has done that. Just proving a point about the double standard and this fake white privilege racial inequality that the leftists are pushing on everyone. It's all BS, but it sure proved one thing about football players. I guess what they say about football players losing their brain is probably true, because these guys have clearly lost theirs once they started acting all racist on us. Think about it, folks. Everyone can be good, bad, successful, horrible people, and that's not limited to white, black, or any race out there. Racism would go away if the liberals would allow it, but then they wouldn't have an agenda anymore.